Amendment number 9 in the name of Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan arises out of the committee proceedings, and I now call on the Deputy to move.
I move. Speak first. Can I speak first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we did debate this at committee stage, and I think there's two aspects to this. First of all is fur farming per se. And I think quite a number of us have made our views known of how opposed we are to fur farming in itself. And we're looking at a time when so many countries in Europe have banned fur farming, and the latest being that the Netherlands, which was the third largest fur producer after China and Denmark, and we see them getting rid of fur farming. We also see it phasing out in other countries, which I think could have been a sensible approach here. I also at that stage discussed the way in which the animals are gassed, and I think there were so the second part of this is the welfare of the mink. Presuming that, as you say, you want greater regulation, so fur farming is not going to be banned in this bill. So I do think there is a need for much stronger controls of the way in which the mink they're held, first of all, and the way in which they are gassed. I think there are serious issues for the environment, which I pointed out at committee stage, that fur has this higher impact in respect of 17 of the 18 environmental themes, including climate change and toxic emissions. And the climate change impact of 1 kilogram of mink fur is 5 times greater than that of the highest scoring textile wool, owing to the feeding requirements and the nitrous oxide emissions from mink manure. So, as I said, there's two issues. I would love to see fur farming banned. I don't know why we have to have fur farming in this day and age. I think we could follow the good example of other countries in Europe and, if not banning it now, at least look at phasing it out. And in the meantime, then, more concern for the welfare of the mink while they're being kept in captivity, and also the way in which they are gassed. And we do know that there is the other issue of mink escaping into and damaging the bird life in the particular areas.
And Tara?
Yeah, no, look, we did have a good discussion on this in committee, and while I'm trying to accommodate people's concerns, there are some things that we just, you want fur farming banned. What I'm proposing to do is to introduce a new code of conduct, a new inspection regime, a new licensing regime, to try and reassure people that that within the boundaries of farming, if you like, that the welfare of the animals is protected, and that goes for things like the density of animal numbers in cages, the way in which they are killed, and I will be bringing that code before committee, and we will be able to discuss it again. But I can't agree with you that we should simply just ban it. We will look at a tight code of conduct and a new licensing regime, and if we have to introduce regulations, well then so be it. Let's wait and see how that code works out. But this is a practice that is relatively small in Ireland. Actually, I think there's only 4 or 5 fur farms in Ireland. And I want to ensure that the fur farming that does take place here is of the highest standard. And if at some point in the future we need to review that because of welfare standards or concerns, well then we can do it. But I don't want. We've made it a policy decision not to do that at this stage, but instead to try and focus on ensuring that welfare concerns are properly adhered to.
Thank you. Deputy Clare Daly.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle, and I'd just like to speak in support of Deputy O'Sullivan's amendment. I appreciate the points that the Minister makes, that he is going to look at this issue in the form of a code of conduct, but I suppose the problem for us is that what we're presently dealing with is an animal health and welfare bill, where this practice, which is inherently cruel and inhumane, is going to be allowed to be continued. And we are, I suppose, expected to buy into a promise of regulation and improvements. And I do know, given the thorough knowledge that the Minister has of his brief, that I'm sure we will be given regulations, and it will be an improvement on what exists now. But the problem for us is that we've no input into that process. Yes, we do have an input into this bill, and I think in that sense the idea of moving the amendment is an appropriate one, because it is a small practice in Ireland. It isn't of any major significance. Often the argument is put forward that there's huge economic considerations with the need to practice this barbarity. That doesn't exist in Ireland. You're talking about 5 registered mink farms, relatively small amount, and yet in 2006 you were talking about 170,000 mink being killed in Ireland, and 300 foxes and so on. So there are issues around the type of regulations that you'll bring in. In Germany, there's substantial improvements. While they haven't banned the practice, they have upgraded significantly, I suppose, the quality of life of mink. There is a contradiction because they don't have much quality of life, but at least they're being kept in better cages. They're given some form of toys, better foods, bans on wire mesh floors and so on, and that these regulations will be. We have no such guarantees in relation to the issues here, or in terms of the manner in which they will be killed. So I think it is my preference for an outright ban, I have to say. I think that is the only thing that's compatible with animal health and welfare, because the idea of just a practice of keeping and rearing animals just for their fur, there's no logical basis to this whatsoever. And while you did say previously that there's currently no foxes being farmed in Ireland for their fur, there's nothing in the legislation which prevents this from happening in the future. So I think we need more, and I think the amendment gives us more, and that's why I support Deputy O'Sullivan in moving it.
Thank you. Deputy Patrick Nulty.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I would also like to speak in support of Deputy O'Sullivan's amendment. I think, Minister, when you admitted yourself that fur farming in Ireland is a very, very small operation, I think it then begs the question why we don't seize the opportunity now today to put an end to this barbaric practice. It is a barbaric practice. It doesn't represent the future of Irish rural economic life, I think you'd accept. It's something that's on the decline. It's something that's unnecessary. It's something that's deliberately cruel, deliberately wrong, and profoundly unnecessary. There's no need or justification for fur farming. I'd be very interested to hear what you would have to say in relation to that, and why you would not take the opportunity as Minister here and now today to be the Minister that brought in the ban on fur farming, to accept my colleague Deputy O'Sullivan's amendment, and to do a good day's work here in the House. Thank you.
Tara?
Well, I certainly hope that I'll be able to do a good day's work in the House, but I mean, it is true to say that there's only 5 fur farms. I don't think it's true to say that it's deliberately cruel. I mean, this is a farming practice. It involves intensive farming, just like poultry or some pig farming is as well. It's not an industry that I'm, overly supportive of, but it's not an industry that I feel I should be banning either. There are quite a number of people in Ireland who make a living linked to the 5 farms that are there. If we were to ban it, we'd have to compensate them. So that's why we have, and I have thought about this, by the way, and I did think about banning fur farming. But on balance, I think it is a fairer approach to the people involved in the industry, and from our point of view as legislators, to actually ensure that we apply best practice in Ireland to ensure that welfare considerations are focused on, and that we put both codes of conduct and a licensing system in place that reflects that. And if it's the case that that code of conduct and that licensing system makes it uncompetitive, well then so be it in the future. But I am slow to simply ban outright something that I personally mightn't be that comfortable with, but at the same time, that is a very different thing to actually deciding to ban something. So, I do think that this industry has a right to survive and deserves a policy response that allows it to do that. But I have a responsibility to ensure that within that, that we impose welfare standards within reason, on this industry, and we will do that. And we will bring, Deputy, that code of conduct to committee, and I suspect you probably will have an input into it. Wait and see what we do on that. We have a report. One of the first things I did actually when I became a minister was to ask for a report on fur farming, which I got, and it makes a whole series of recommendations. I know some of the deputies have probably read that, and it doesn't go far enough for you. But I think it is a step in the right direction, and now we will move ahead to put a code of conduct in place, and let's see where we are in 5 years' time with this industry.
Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan.
I just have to take issue with the aspect that you said that it's not cruel. I mean, it is cruel because they're gassed with either carbon dioxide.
People don't deliberately set out to be cruel in this industry.
I know, but if you're going to gas an animal with carbon dioxide, there is cruelty, and I mean that is scientifically proven that there is cruelty involved and there is pain involved for these mink. And I just referred to a recent, I think it was the Irish Wildlife Trust report on television some time ago about mink farms, and they really pointed out the dreadful conditions that there are. Okay, I can accept you have said you're not going to ban it outright, but I would have thought that there would be some consideration of the phasing out of the industry, which other countries are doing.
There are also other countries who aren't doing that. You know, I mean, this is a policy choice. The decision that we have decided to make was that we would ensure that Ireland, in terms of being an international benchmark, would ensure that we prioritise welfare standards within this industry to as high, if not a higher degree than any other country. And we'll do that through a code of practice and a licensing system. And that's the approach that we've decided. There are recommendations, and there are actually European standards in terms of how you kill animals. But I mean, it is important to say that there isn't any farming system where animals are slaughtered at the end of their lifetime that doesn't involve some pain, whether it's poultry or whether it's pigs or whether it's sheep or whether it's cattle. I don't know whether you've ever visited a slaughterhouse, but this is part of farming, and we need to ensure that that we apply standards that ensure that we minimise suffering at the time of death of animals, just like we have for other farmed animals also. And we'll try and do that through the code of conduct in terms of how animals are actually killed at the end of their lifetime.
Thank you, Minister. Has the amendment been opposed? It is. It is. I now put the question that the amendment be made. Those in favour of Obainish Tá? Those against? Níl. I believe the amendment is lost. Ótáil.
Thank you. Item number 30, Animal Health and Welfare Bill 2012, report stage. Thank you. Amendment number 9 in the name of Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan. The question is that the amendment be made. On that question, a division has been challenged. Tellers Hall, Deputies Maureen O'Sullivan, Claire Daly, Deputies Neil, Deputy Paul Joe and Emmett Stark. Tall 14, Neil 106. The amendment is made. Sorry, the amendment is lost. Sorry, I was given wrong information here.